In this video, we're going to be breaking down all the ways you can make passive income through residential real estate and breaking down which ways are the best ways for you. The way this is going to work is we're going to go over each of the investing strategies. And for each one, we're going to discuss how passive it is, how profitable it is, how much it costs to get started, and how easy it is for beginners to do. At the end of this video, I'll be giving you my recommendation for what strategy you should do based on what scenario you're in. I want to be clear that this is my understanding of all the strategies based on other investors that I've spoken to and the research that I've done. Let's get into it. First up, we have house hacking. This is when you buy a property to live in it and rent it out at the same time. Let's say you buy a single family home, you live in one bedroom, and you rent out the other bedrooms to your friends. The rent from your friends covers everything like the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance. This way you can own your own house and live rent-free. In terms of passiveness, house hacking is the least passive. Because you're living in the property, you're going to end up spending time with the tenants who live there, which is more than what you would typically do if you had a property manager in any of the other strategies. The profitability for a house hack is low. Because you're going to end up living in the house, you can't charge maximum rent in a house hack, which means in most cases you'll end up breaking even or just paying a couple $100s a month to live there. Cost to get a house hack is very low, which is good. See, when you buy a property to live in, the government is willing for you to take on a house with less down payment. You can do an FHA loan with 3.5% down, a USDA loan with 0% down, or a VA loan with 0% down. So you need little money to start. In terms of beginner friendly, a house hack is actually somewhere in the middle. There are resources out there on how to house hack step by step, but the issue is that it's a little bit more niche than just regular long-term investing, so it's a little bit more nuanced. The second strategy is long-term rentals. This is when you buy a property and rent it out and hope to make passive income every single month. This is the traditional method that most real estate investors do, and this is what I do. Usually you lease out the property for a year. And usually when you're buying a house, you end up buying it with 20 to 25% down, or you might use a hard money loan with 10% down. In terms of passiveness, long-term rental property investing is the second most passive. You likely won't have to deal with much, but every couple of weeks you might get a call from your property manager telling you have to do something here or there. But the property manager will deal with a lot of the day-to-day issues. In terms of profitability, it falls somewhere in the middle. Now the returns can obviously vary, but you can get something between 10 and 20% on a lot of rental properties. If you buy houses with 20 to 25% down using a traditional mortgage every single time, it can be very costly. But there are ways to reduce that down payment by doing things like fixing up the property using a hard money loan. So I place this in the middle between rental, arbitrage, and turnkey. You can definitely buy a cheaper house and use a hard money loan to reduce it. Long-term rentals are the easiest of them all. It's so well documented. There's so many online forums and so many YouTube channels that talk about doing this. The third strategy is known as turnkey rentals. This is the exact same thing as a long-term rental, except you're buying the rental property from a company that already fixed it up for you. And they have a property manager in place. This way you automatically get a lot of it done. Turnkey rentals are the most passive of them all. First, you don't got to look at a ton of properties to find one because the turnkey company will give you one, so it reduces a lot of upfront work. Second, you don't have to fix up the property once you got it, and you likely won't have to deal with as many repair issues as time goes on because the property's fixed up when you bought it. And third, they'll give you a property management company. This way, a lot of the work is taken care of for you on a day-to-day basis. But, likely over time, you're going to have to deal with a thing or two. In terms of profitability, it's the second least profit, only ahead of house hacking. Since you're trying to automate a lot of the work up front by finding the property, getting it fixed up, and getting a property manager, you're likely going to take a hit on profit. Everything's going to have to be run through the property manager. And second, you're also not going to get the fixed up equity value that you would get from fixing up a property. In terms of easiness, it's the second easy because it's just like a long-term rental, except you have to actually work with the turnkey company to start. Even though turnkey rentals are not complex, they're just a little bit more challenging for a beginner because you need to find and work with a turnkey company in order to get started. Luckily, you can find some with a couple of Google searches. The next method to make passive income in residential real estate is through short-term rentals. These are similar to long-term rentals, but instead of renting out properties for a year, you'll rent out them on shorter leases, like 1 month, or as little as 1 day. This is like Airbnb or Vrbo. Now, short-term rentals are the second least passive on the list. This is only a little bit more passive than a house hack. Because unlike a yearly rental, you need to get new tenants in every couple of days or every couple of months. And every time that happens, you're going to need to pay for the house to get cleaned, fix up whatever damage has been done, and try to find new tenants. Also, you need to furnish the property up front, so it's more work. I know this because my girlfriend just bought her first Airbnb and it took her 2 full months of buying things on Facebook Marketplace and then moving them into the apartment and fixing things up to get it ready for her to put it on Airbnb. This is just to give you an idea. In terms of profitability, short-term rentals are the most profitable of them all. Because you're renting them out on a daily basis, you'll have a higher daily rate than you would on a yearly rate from a regular lease. In fact, like 1 or 2 Airbnbs usually can set you financially free if it's done right. But cost-wise, short-term rentals tend to be the highest. You first need to buy a property in a great location. Think like a downtown area. In a downtown area, typically the properties are the highest out of everywhere. Because they're the highest, you'll need a higher down payment to buy the property. Not only that, but you'll also have to furnish the property out of pocket to start off. This way you can get it going. Now this method is still pretty easy, but it's still a newer form of investing, so I rate it second to last. There are plenty of content creators that are on YouTube and TikTok that are talking about how to do Airbnb rentals. So you should be able to find that information available to you. Next up, we have rental arbitrage. This is when you rent a property from a landlord, and instead of actually living there, you rent out the place to someone else. The landlord agrees to this because you agree to pay money up front and usually higher amount of rent and maybe lock into a longer lease. You will now Airbnb or short-term rental the place out, but you must furnish it yourself. It's basically the same thing as Airbnb, but except you don't own the property. In terms of passiveness, it's basically the same as a short-term rental, but it's just a little bit more passive because you don't have to deal with the mortgage, taxes, and insurance on the property. Instead, you're just paying rent. Typically, rental arbitrage will have less profitability than a short-term rental, mainly because you don't own the property, so you won't collect any appreciation or tax benefits associated with it. But you'll still get higher cash flow than you would in a long-term rental. In terms of cost, you don't need to buy the property. The only money out of pocket you need is to sign the lease and the early down payment on the lease, and you'll need the money to fix up the property to start. So this is pretty affordable to start, especially behind a house hack. In terms of easiness, this is a pretty niche strategy that has just started being done in the last couple of years. So there's less information online, but there's still people out there talking about this, so it's totally doable. Also, as time goes on and there's more and more competition in this area, it's gonna be harder and harder for you to do any rental arbitrage opportunities. There are only so many landlords available that can do this. Now let's go over a few scenarios that you might be in and help you pick a strategy. This way you can actually get started sooner. So if you struggle with little money for the down payment, then what strategy you're gonna wanna use is house hacking. If you're looking for the most passive way, you want a property that's fixed up already and do little work, then I would go with turnkey. If you're looking for a property with the most profit, then I would go for short-term rentals. If you're looking for something that is the easiest way to invest, it's most documented, I would go for long-term rentals. If you can't get a loan for a property, then I would look for rental arbitrage. And in my opinion, the best overall, and obviously I'm biased, but I think long-term rental property investing is the best overall because you get some upside and very little downside. Picking your investment strategy is only the first step that you have to do before buying your first rental property. The next thing you need to do is pick your city based on data. In order to do that, click the video on screen and watch that now, and I'll see you over there. Peace.